Yep, we're good.
Okay.
We're recording.
So
We'll get a little bit closer.
So this is our hive evaluation for the Master Beekeeper class. My name is Chris Parker. I'm owner of Bray West Bee Farm and Outdoor Power Equipment. We're presently here today in our Averts Corner Bee Yard along Highway 258-24. We're roughly about, I don't know, 30 minutes or so from the Atlantic Ocean, and surprisingly enough today we have some fairly calm winds out the north around 10 to 15 mile an hour, but less than about 350 miles offshore right now is a Category 4 hurricane, and fortunately it's moving away from us in a north-northeast fashion. So we hope that everybody to the north of us continues to enjoy that same path and track. This yard here in particular is kind of a holding yard or a stationary yard for me. If we move hives out to farms for pollination, they may, hives, if they get weak or problematic hives, they come back to this yard, and we've just got some that's staged out and about. This is a really good area to rehab hives. There's a lot of pine, ponderosa pine, and loblolly pine for bees to forage and collect a lot of propolis. In the fall, probably in about another 30 days or so, the whole rest of this field will be covered in a lot of goldenrod. And so there'll be a lot of rich but stinking pollen that's coming into the hives that we'll take a look at. We have been fairly hot here in the summertime. Today's temperature is roughly around 88 degrees or so, somewhat of a cloud overcast, but we've not really experienced much of a dearth in this area. We've kept enough rain on the ground that most of the foliage and the things that the bees would naturally forage on has been able to keep the roots well established. So we've not really had to do a lot of feeding on some of these hives as we have in other places in our area and some of my other bee yards, which may only be 15-20 minutes away. The rain has been really sporadic. This area here may have sustained as much as 6 to 8 inches of rain last month, where less than 15-20 miles away we got less than an inch to inch and a half of rain. So it's we have to really watch that. We just can't take one bee yard for granted and say that all of them are the same. There's got to be regular inspections. So to kind of get ready to do the hive inspection, when I come out with the smoker lit, before I even really walk up to the hive and begin putting smoke out, I take a look at the front of the hive and see what's happening. In other words, are there bees coming back? Are there bees leaving? I'm looking to see if whether or not I see any collective wax buildup, meaning is the hive had some significant robbing that's going on. And as we can tell today, bees are coming back in, but I'm not seeing a lot of pollen. But I do see several of our guard bees, and you'll notice them turned upside down looking at me on the front. So I've already kind of did a bit of a cursory inspection on this hive. What I'm expecting to see is a hive that's got brood, and I'm expecting also to see pollen. And based upon what I was in this hive the last time, roughly 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm also expecting to see a fairly significant amount of honey, or at least feed on the frames. We have been feeding these hives off and on simply because there were some that we brought back in from some crops to make sure that their nutrition is where it needs to be. So I'm going to put a little smoke right along the front of the hive, entertain the guard bees, and then these are migratory lids. Put a little smoke underneath them. The migratory lids work well for us, especially for stacking and moving the hives. But I must say there is some limitations to migratory lids. For example, if you sustain any small hive beetle, any population of small hive beetles, the migratory lid doesn't give enough space for the bee to cross across the top of the frame and actually give enough bee space to patrol those areas to prevent small hive beetles from populating. This hive was also treated for mites. We put 2 new frames in this past weekend here. We actually had a customer that needed some larvae and some eggs and cat brood in a weak hive, so we shared a few frames of resources with her, and we left the strips in. These strips are Viroxan strips, which are listed. This is a new product for us. It's a 42-day treatment, essentially 2 brood cycles. You need 1 strip for every 2 frames of brood. And that's what we've got presently applicated in this hive. We've had a lot of success with Viroxan since we started treating. I think the first time in February we had some hives that were up closer to 12%, and in the treatment sequence of 42 days it put the mite count less than 1%. So we've been very happy with it thus far. We'll go ahead and take these strips out today while we're working this hive, and I'm also going to do a mite count so I can determine the overall efficacy of this particular treatment that we've had. So for most people, and it's kind of always for me, is I don't never really take out the first frame. And by doing so, by taking out the first frame, you wind up killing a lot of bees when you pull the frame straight out. On this hive, however, we've got a feeder, so I kind of make a purchase point, if you will, to be able to pull out my feeder and just real quickly check, make sure I don't see a queen. Shouldn't be one on here, but what shouldn't be is not always the case. I'm gonna set this on the side so we don't block the other hive. Speaking of that, let me just take a quick look and make sure that I don't see a queen on the lid before we get there. Okay. So the feed that we provided these guys this weekend, they have really taken it up and started putting some into frame, so that's good. I need to put these reading glasses on and quit acting like I'm 18 years old again, I guess. So I know we do have a queen. When I'm looking at the bees, I see lots of nice worker bees. I don't see any drones in this hive at all, and frankly, this time of year we're in the fall, so we're in the population decrease phase right now for our area, and I'm not surprised at all that I'm not seeing any drones at this point. In fact, here we probably do some of our last grafts somewhere around mid-July because essentially we just don't have enough drones this late in the season to really get some good mated queens. Now there is a small queen cup right here, and the reason it is a queen cup is because when I inspect it and look, there is no egg laying inside of it, so therefore it's not a queen cell. I don't see the queen on this frame, and I want to ask Mr. Bill here that's operating my camera, if he can get a close-up shot of these. Here, let's turn to we'll put the sun to our back. If we can you get to the bottom of those cells? There's actually eggs, 1-day-old eggs here. And incidentally, I mentioned a while ago there wasn't any drones, but right there is a drone. So there is at least one drone in here. Eggs in here and larvae. on the other side. Get a good shot. I can produce some light here that may help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Eggs, cat brood. From what I can tell on the cat brood, it all looks healthy. I don't see any chewed caps, nothing that's sunken. I'm not seeing anything that gives me an indication of any foul brood. No leaking cells, nothing that looks mushy. And we just got a load of uncapped honey all the way around the frame. The other thing I'm looking at too with bees is I'm not seeing any deformed wings. So all the wings look good. There's some larvae right there. And I'm also looking at the larvae. They're swimming in royal jelly. So that tells me that I've got my feed dialed in properly, my concentration. Nurse bees, their glands are activated and feeding. I don't see any of the larvae that look like they're twisted. Any yellowing, which would give me any indication that maybe any European foul brood, which we had a bit of European foul brood in this area last fall. But fortunately thus far everything looks good. Okay, let's take another quick look here. So these bees, actually this hive is queened by one of our queens that we raised this year in the early spring. Been very happy with them. They've been really good honey producers. They've been good pollinators for bringing in pollen. And as you can tell, queen's got a really good laying pattern. There's a few cells there that was left open for them to bring pollen in. But the queens come in and actually you've got lots of different larvae filled into those cells. So one thing that does concern me looking at this hive is that there is a lot of pollen. There's a lot of uncapped honey, a lot of capped brood, but I'm not seeing a lot of pollen, which gives me concern that we may actually need to feed a bit of protein. We'll kind of continue to evaluate that over the next few days or so. And let's pull another frame. Probably gonna try to get a mite count. I would like to find the queen first if possible, but that's okay. Again, got a lot of larvae here. I do see some chewed caps. I kind of pull that back. Could just simply be something genetically wrong with that. But I don't see anything that gives me any concern that there's a lot of disease that's there. Still. And as much as I would like to find the queen, I don't necessarily have to, because I know this hive is queen right. We've got lots of eggs, brood, cat larvae, or larvae and cat brood. And the reason I'm going to test this frame is because I've got a lot of brood on this frame, and if there's going to be mites to look at, brood is the area of the hive that we want to do it in. Now, I use a varroa mite tester, and I'm going to move over here to this side so I don't do something dumb and dump a cup of alcohol inside the unopened hive. But I like using a half a cup as a testing cup versus actually just collecting them in the alcohol bath all at one time. And the reason being is because although I have looked this frame over for the queen, I can get one more last opportunity as I watch these bees fall over into this cup and ensuring that I have not seen my queen do a backflip and making her debut into that cup of alcohol over there. And we've got a pretty good half cup of bees now, roughly about a 300 bee count. Put the lid on here. And we're going to shake that up for a good minute or so. And I think where some people make a big mistake is they shake this up and then they immediately look at the results of the test. After I wash them, I just kind of let it sit there. I finished my hive inspection. These bees are doing well. So this is a frame they've already drawn out one side since Saturday. And Mr. Bill, I'll shine it in again. This one may be easier to see, but she's already laying eggs on this frame. This one's probably harder to see rather, because this is crimp wire foundation. Now, we often start, here at the farm, we often start our spring boxes off early in the spring with a lot of plastic foundation. I prefer the black plastic foundation because it's easier for me to be able to see the eggs against that contrast. However, we know as time goes on, the honey flow is officially over here for the springtime. I have high hopes that we're likely to see a bit of fall honey, simply because of the amount of rain that we've got, and the flowers are already starting to come back here again. Most everything all the wet honey I see in the box here today is coming from our feed. And in fact, when I look at the hive, front of the hive, I don't see any tremble dances, anything that kind of gives me any indication that there's much of a honey flow at all today. So everything that I'm seeing here is feed that we're putting in the box. Yeah. Again, more eggs and cat brood on the outside frame. But my concern here with this hive is their pollen stores are depleted. These guys really need some protein, because although we've got a well-populated hive here, they're working these two frames here in the middle nicely. It's hard to believe, but for us, it's almost the middle of August, towards the end of August. And so we got to get ready for some cool temperatures. And I want to try to make sure that this box has at least 4 to 5 frames of bees to overwinter here. A little bit of cap honey, not much on the outside frame. And again, a little bit of pollen. And there is a small hive beetle running. If I can catch him, we're going to make an end to that. Notice how the small hive beetles are on the outside frames, which gives me not a lot of concern, but it does give me an indication that this hive is strong enough that they're managing the small hive beetles and keeping them pushed away to the outside to the brood frames. Something else that I often look at in my inspections, and Mr. Bill, I'm gonna ask you to come around and take a look, shine down straight into the bottom of the box, is these boxes with pallets. We drill about a 3/4 inch hole in the very back to ensure that any water that may hit the front of the hive drains. But something else that I look at that I like as a trait on our bees is you'll notice the bottom of that box for the most part is fairly clean. You don't see a lot of wax cappings. You don't see small hive beetle larvae being pushed around or wax moths pushed around. It's fairly clean. So that's part of a hygienic behavior that we like to see and look at. I'm just going to give another little quick puff of smoke as I finish putting this hive back together. And while I'm here, but since the treatment is over, I'm going to go ahead and pull those strips out. And we'll see what the mite count is, and then we'll make an assessment on this yard as to what we've got to do. I think something else I have to be careful of with bees on pallets is if the pallet, I really don't care so much about this way because I've taken care of making sure that water can't sit in the bottom of the box. But what I do have a little bit of concern about is that the pallet is not level left or right. You'll start noticing them glue these frames together. So sometimes we have to make some adjustments there. We still have a little bit of sugar feed in this feeder. So I'll get our folks today to get ready to feed this week. We'll put a little more in here. And I'm also going to try to correct the pollen deficiency in this box because I want them to get stronger. It's probably going to put a feed shim on this box and put a Hive Alive trivet across the frames and maybe cut some pollen patties and just put on top of that trivet. The reason I'm going with the trivet is because I have identified small hive beetles in this hive. And if you just lay pollen patties across the frames, small hive beetles get into those pollen patties. They'll begin to collect, lay eggs, and then you've got a real problem on your hands. So by putting the trivet out on top of the frames, it essentially maintains the bee space and the 360 degrees around the pollen patties so the bees are able to patrol it and manage the small hive beetles. I don't see any big issues here. I think this hive is heading in the right direction. I'm just gonna put a little smoke on the top. I like to shake them off the lid, little tap, nothing too significant. And then we're gonna close up the hive. And again, on these migratory lids, I kind of like to start halfway, make sure that I don't see any bees. There's no need in unnecessarily just smashing bees just by getting the lid back on. And just like we're clean all the way around. You'll notice my cinder blocks on tops of all the hives. It is not unheard of at this yard, and especially in our Sneeze Fair yard, because we are so close to the coast, getting 35, 40 mile an hour knot winds across some of these properties. I do, again, something about this yard is you'll notice that I kind of have three faces of trees that knock down wind well, and they're all on the northern side of the yard. So northeast winds is coming off the ocean. The trees do fairly nicely with that. So let's see what we look like on a mite count. Put my glasses back on. And I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mites. Mr. Bill, I don't know if you can get that on camera. So 6 mites on a 300 bee count. We're right at 2%. 3 mites would have been 1%. 9 mites would have been 3%. So we're right at 2%. We're in a good position, I think, with this particular hive on the mite count. We're going to check them again here another probably 15 days or so, and we may give them an early fall treatment, maybe with some Apivar, or I'm sorry, Apigard thymol gel. I like using the thymol in the latter part of the year after the temperature gets below 80 degrees because there actually is some efficacy in the thymol gel of cleaning up viruses and those sort of things, in addition to trachea mites, if there is any, along with a last final treatment of varroa mites in the fall. I believe that's everything. Appreciate you guys' time, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks.